Before you cut and sew, there are some measurements that I encourage you to take. And those measurements include your sleeve length, so from here to your wrist, the circumference of your wrist, the circumference of your bicep, here's your bicep here, circumference of your bicep. Of course, you'll need your bust measurement, your natural waist measurement, and your hip measurement, and the length of the dress. So I'll have some suggested links in the pattern instructions. For example, if you want a mini dress, it'll be anywhere between 32 inches and 34 inches, which is what I'm doing today. I want my dress short, but not too short. And the length of this dress that I have on now, let me see how long I made this dress. Drop that to the This dress is 35 inches long. This dress is 35 inches long, and that's knee length on me. So this dress that I'm gonna make here is probably gonna be 32 inches long because I want it a little shorter. You also want to measure your neck. So measure the circumference of your neck and your lower neck. Measure the circumference of your lower neck down here. You also might want to measure how far your neck is from your shoulders. So from here to where you want it to start. So for me, it would be right here. That'd be 3 inches. And I would just check and make sure that this starts at about 3 inches. Do you have all your pattern pieces cut out? I do. So let's start. Now, these are the pieces that you should have. You should have your front collar and your back collar. The one thing about the back and the front collar are they are made exactly to fit the pattern. So if you want, you can cut just a little bit more to make sure that you have room for your seams on the inside, if that makes sense. But we'll talk about that when we get to the collars. But when you cut, just make sure you cut a little bit extra. The next is a sleeve. You have the front notch, which is the single line, and the back notch, which is the double line. Then you have the jabot. For the jabot, you're gonna cut 2. For the fabric, for the sleeve, you're gonna cut 2. And then you have the dress. You have the dress front and the dress back. When I sewed this dress, I sewed a 2. I wear a size 0 in this pattern, but I sew a 2. So this time I'm going to sew a 0 to see how it fits, because this one fits just a little loose because I didn't want it too tight. But I kind of want this dress tighter, so I'm going to sew the 0. If you don't know if your fabric is stretchy enough, go ahead and do the stretch test. If you don't know how to do the stretch test, I have another link included just for that. So go ahead and watch that now. Or if you're ready and you know your fabric is stretchy enough, come on, let's sew. I am going to sew this pattern the way that I sew, but if you have personal ways that you sew, feel free to do those. So as far as the fabric is concerned, I never lay out all of my pieces on the fabric at one time and then sew. I actually cut piece by piece, and I start with the largest piece first. Since I'm sewing a dress, I'm gonna start with the dress front, the dress back, then the sleeve, okay, to make sure that I have enough fabric. If the fabric is stretching this way, the grain is parallel to the selvage here. So since the fabric is stretching opposite of the selvage, that's great. So we're going to make sure that we lay our dress front on the fold. So I have the fold here. Lay your dress front on the fold. The fold is here. Then we're gonna pin it down. You don't have to make yours the same length as the pattern. You can adjust it the way you want. But my dress is going to be 34 inches long, okay? My dress is gonna be 34 inches long, which is gonna be much shorter than this. And then I'm gonna pin this down. Now make sure that your fabric stretches this way, okay? It needs to stretch that way. Let's pin this down. And I am going to cut the full length of my fabric, even though my dress is going to be 34 inches long. I do that in case I change my mind. But I might not. Right, so now that I have that pinned down, I am going to cut it. And now I'm going to cut it. Let me get me some of those electric scissors. Okay, the next thing we're going to cut is the dress back. And the dress back you cut two. You do not cut that on a fold because it's going to be two separate pieces. The one thing that I like to do, you don't have to do this, but the one thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and sew it on the wrong side. That way I can just go ahead and pin it down and sew and take it to the machine and sew it together. Let's see what this is. So let me make sure I have enough fabric for my sleeve. Only about a yard of this. And I know I told y'all 2 yards, but I'm about a yard of this. And I should have bought 2 yards. I don't know what I was thinking. But it's so pretty, and I want to make a dress with it. And I might make mine sleeveless. To cut, if you want to pin notches in yours or cut notches in yours, then you can use the bust line mark, the waistline mark, the hip line mark. You don't have to use all 3, but if you need it, you can use those for your notches. I personally do not sew with notch marks. The only notch marks that I use are the ones for the sleeve. Here's the back notch for the sleeve. So we're gonna cut that. And I'm gonna cut 2 so that I know it's the back. Alright, so I have my front and my back. Now, I only use 1 yard of fabric. You use 2 yards. I only use 1. So let me see if I have enough for my sleeve. I hope I do. I wanted it to be long sleeve, but it might have to be short sleeve. So let's see if I have enough. I might make mine sleeveless because I want to wear a lace shirt under mine. might make mine sleeveless, so we'll see. Okay, I have just enough for the sleeve, so I'm gonna cut my sleeves. Now, if I had enough fabric, as I should have had enough fabric, then I would fold it over and cut it. But since I don't have enough fabric, I'm gonna cut 2 separate sleeves. Okay. I really want to make this a sleeveless dress though. All right. This is 26 inches long. I'm gonna use this paper to cut one more sleeve. And since I'm cutting 2 sleeves in 2 separate sleeves, I'm going to flip my paper over. Therefore, I'm not cutting the same exact sleeve, cutting 2 different ones. See, I barely made it. I barely made it with this fabric. And I used 1 yard. Barely made it. So I am only turning this over because I am making 2 separate sleeves and I didn't fold the fabric over. Thinking about putting pockets on the front of my dress. These will make cute little pockets. So I'm gonna save this for the front. And I'm cutting my sleeve just a little bit inward because my arms are very thin. So I'm cutting my sleeve in a little bit. To go with this thin arm I got. Then I'm going to take this apart. Take my sleeves. I'm just making sure my sleeves are even. And now we're gonna cut the jabot, and you only need 2 pieces of this. So I'm gonna use my lace spool. And if you want some of this lace, let me know. I have a lot of it, so I can sell it to you for a couple of dollars and ship it to you. I have a lot of this lace. Listen, you do not have to be perfect at sewing. Sometimes I leave a little extra on the side. I don't want to, it's already in a straight line. But I don't want to cut it back and mess up the straight line. That's the only reason why I'm not cutting back. Right, then we can throw this to the side. Okay, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna get started on folding the jabot. Okay. This is the way that you should do it. So I want to make sure that my lace is on the right side. So I'm going to turn this opposite of this one so that they are both the same. Your jabot is actually going to be, you can have your jabot any way you want, but I like for mine to face inward. So this is how it will actually be on the collar. Okay, now this is how you can do it. If you want to do this before you do the fabric, that'd be great. So you'll already have the crease lines that you need in it. Here is the pleat. So you fold it this way for the pleat, okay? Then you find the fold line. The fold is what's going to be on the inside, okay? It's on the inside. So imagine this is the neck. This is the inside. The pleat is on the outside. That's what that means. So fold, pleat. Remember, the pleat is on the outside. The fold is on the inside. Fold. And that. The pleat is on the outside. The fold is on the inside. The pleat is on the outside. The fold is on the inside. And if you want, you see how it's a little room there because each size has its own measurement for this. You can pull it out if you want so that they're all even. But remember, the pleats are on the outside, the folds are on the inside, okay? And this will be the inside. This is where they'll both meet, all right? So it's like an accordion. So we're gonna try that again, but this time we're gonna do it with the fabric, okay? I'm gonna do it with the fabric. And if you need to use pins, you can use pins. All right. So, I'm going to pleat my fabric here. And I already have the crease line, so it's easy for me to figure out how to do that. Then I fold it over. Okay, then I pleat on the outside. Then I fold it over on the inside. Then I pleat on the outside. I fold it over on the inside. Pleat on the outside, fold on over on the inside, like that. Okay, and then grab the edges of each of your outside pleats like this. You're just grabbing the edges and you just slide this out. See how I slid that out? Look at that. Then you pin it down like this. And I've done this a few times, so it might be easier for me. But if you try it a couple of times, it'll be easy for you too. But you see how perfect that is? All right, now we're gonna try it. So this is gonna be one of our jabots. Now we're gonna do it on the opposite side. But the thing is, when we do it on the opposite side, we have to flip the paper over. With the jabot that's going to be on the opposite side, you have to flip the paper and refold the paper because the folds and the pleats have to go the opposite way. Okay, so the best thing to do is refold the paper because that will make it easier to fold. Now, lay the paper face down, so pattern instructions face down. All right, and you're going to pleat. Your pleat is on the outside. Your fold is on the inside. Fold on the inside. Pleat is on the outside. Your fold is on the inside. All right, and if you notice, it's going against the old pleats and folds that you had before because it's the opposite side. So your pleat is on the outside. Your fold is on the inside. Pleat is on the outside. Your fold is on the inside. And there you go. Now, if you look at the paper, it's kind of even, but you're gonna pull your fabric up to match when you actually do it together. So you can leave it uneven like that. And if you want to fix how your folds and pleats look, do that now. And then press them down like this. So that's going to be easier to fold your fabric. So I got my fabric here. I'm going to unfold this. And we're going to begin. All right, pleat on the outside, fold on the inside. Pleat on the outside, the fold is on the inside. Pleat is on the outside, the fold is on the inside. The pleat is on the outside, and the fold is on the inside. Like that. Then you're going to gather the edges. You're going to pull this out. And you're going to pull these. And pin this together. And it's going to probably be a little bit uneven. They're not all going to be together. So when you sew it, you're going to sew it down in two or three places. You're going to sew it down here at the top, here, and here. You don't want it to be flying away. Okay, so we'll definitely, in fact, you just sew right here where the pin is, because when you sew the collar on, you'll catch the rest. And here are our jabots, and they're gonna meet together like this. They're gonna meet together like that. Okay, I'm gonna go over that one more time, and I will create a separate jabot tutorial. When you do the jabot, it's going to be on the left side. The pattern side is gonna be up, and you're gonna pleat to the outside, fold to the inside. 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 And then you're gonna press the paper down. Then you're gonna unfold it and do it with the actual fabric. Then when you do it for the right jabot, you're gonna flip it over. Now you're going to refold it because it needs to go the opposite way. Okay? So you see how this is going this way? You don't need it to go that way. You need it to go this way. So pleat on the outside, fold on the inside. 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 Then press it down so it can hold its shape. Then do it with the fabric. One for the right and one for the left. But by the time that I publish this video, I'm probably just gonna make a left and a right jabot. I probably need to make two separate ones so that you guys don't get confused, because of course it's easy for me, but I don't want to make it hard for everyone else. So yeah, look at me editing live. You get to see me edit live. Okay, so thank you guys. All right, now let's sew our back dress. That's the first thing that we're going to sew. We're gonna sew our back dress. We're gonna sew that together. If you're gonna put a zipper on it, this is the time to put the zipper on now. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use a black invisible zipper, but you can use a regular zipper too. I just didn't have any regular zippers here. And I'm gonna measure to where the zipper thread would need to stop. So I'm gonna have it stop right here. So when I go to the sewing machine, I'm gonna make a regular stitch from here on down, and then I'm gonna do a base stitch from here on up. And the base stitch is so that I can sew my zipper on and then pull out the base stitches so that my zipper can be exposed. So here we have the dress. The armhole is on this side, and where the back closure is going to be is on the opposite side. I've marked where I want my basting separated from my regular stitch, and I have pink thread, and we're going to do a regular stitch from where that hip line is all the way down to the bottom. This does not come with seam allowance, so if you want seam allowance, you'll have to add that in. I am sewing mine without seam allowance, and it's going to be about 5/8 of an inch. Now I am going to do my basting stitch for my zipper. I'm going to start at the very top. And for my basting stitch, I'm going to make sure that it's as wide as possible and it has the least amount of tension as possible, so that I can use my seam ripper to rip it out. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to leave a good amount of thread on there so that I know where my basting stitch ends. Since my thread is the same color as my fabric, I need to be able to see where the stitch is. So I'm going to take this apart so that you can see it. Now we're going to sew the back dress to the dress front, and we're going to do right sides facing each other. So the right sides are going to be kissing. And here's one sleeve. We're going to pin that down. And then we're going to connect the next sleeve. We're going to pin that down. And now we're going to sew this with a regular stitch. So now we have the two shoulders sewn together, and we are about to put our zipper on. I did find a closed zipper, and I'm using pink thread so you'll be able to see. And this is what it looks like with the basting. So this is basted from here on down to where the thread is, so that I can use my seam ripper to pull the thread out after I put my zipper in. So I have on my zipper foot on my sewing machine. Now there will be a collar here, so we're going to put the collar on last. So as a point of reference, I just put the zipper right above the top of the back of the neck, and then the rest will be filled in by the collar. Now I'm going to do the other side. So I left a little room at the top because your back collar is going to go here. And now we're going to undo the basting stitch. And at this point, all I'm doing is removing the basting with my seam ripper. So I'm pulling out the threads. And it's very easy because I sewed it with a long stitch with a tension of 1. The excess thread will be peeping through. Just pull it out. And there's your zipper. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is set the sleeve. So we're gonna sew the sleeve in. You can start with either side. I'll start with this side. Make sure it's turned wrong side up. And remember, the back sleeves have the back sleeve has 2 notches. So that's the back sleeve. I'm gonna make sure I line that up with these notches here. So just line up your notches. And then we can start sewing. And there is a lot of ease in the sleeves. So if you have anything that's excess, you can just cut that off. But I did make sure that it was at least a 1/2 inch of ease in the sleeves. All right. And then you're gonna repeat for the other side. Have your sleeve and your shoulder. So your shoulder and your sleeve. Now we're going to pin down the front to the back and the sleeves all together and sew them together. So you want to pin the length of the dress. So here's the waistline. Here's the hip line. Here's the bottom. All right, so how you doing? How you doing? We just finished sewing up the back to the front. We set in the sleeves and we placed in the zipper. And this is what we have here. This is the dress inside out. That's the front. This is the sleeve. This is the back. Now I'm gonna flip it to the right side. So pretty, I can't wait to wear this. And this is how it looks. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that zipper. Isn't that gorgeous? And remember, the reason why the zipper is sticking out is because we have to add the collar, which we're about to do now. And this dress is gonna look so good on me. So here are the two collar pieces. You have the front collar and the back collar. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna measure my finished neckline. So I'm gonna see what it came out to be 11 and a half for me in the front and 4 in the back. Now we're about to cut the collars, and we saved them for last because we wanted to make sure that we got the exact measurement needed for the exact collar that we actually sewed. So measure the collar, and after you measure the collar, add about 1 inch and then cut your collar. So therefore everything will line up perfectly. Now you're going to take your back collar, fold your back collar in half, and then cut it, because you're going to need that for both sides of your back dress. Now take each back collar and pin it to the end of the front collar with the right sides touching. So you're going to pin it on the wrong side. The wrong side should be facing you and the right side should be touching. And then this is also the point where you're going to sew it. You're going to sew each end, the back collar to the front collar on each end. And then once you sew it, you'll flip it out to the right side. So each end we have pinned, that's where we're going to sew. Right here, I'm just trimming the edges of the collar to make sure that the front collar and the back collar, they're the same width. So each pinned end down widthwise. And this is how it should look. Now turn it right side up, and you're going to fold it on each end to make sure that the right sides are kissing. And this will finish the collar for the zipper. And this is the very end. You're going to do this on the very end of each. Fold it widthwise so that the right sides are touching. Sew it down and then flip it out like that, and it'll give you a finished end. We'll do this side too so you can see it. Fold it with right sides touching. Sew it down. Then flip it inside out and that finished end will be for both ends of your zipper. Now lay your right jabot and your left jabot down in the center of the neck, then pin it. It should be in the center of the front neckline. Pin those down. I like for mine to overlap about 2 or 3 millimeters so that it doesn't create like a gap. But you can lay yours however you want. But just know that once you sew it down, it's going to stay wherever you sew it. Last check, make sure everything is even. Make sure that the bottom of the jabot is even. The top, it doesn't really matter at the neckline because it's going to get sewn over anyway. Your priority is the bottom because that's what's going to be seen by everyone. The top is about to be sewn down. So you're going to fold your full collar in half to find the center point, and you're going to pin it at the center point. Then you take that center point and you pin it down at the very center neckline of your jabot. And from this point out, that's where you pin it. Start from the center, then work your way around to one of the seams, one of the shoulder seams. Match the shoulder seam of your dress to one of the seams in the collar, and do the same for the other side. The seams of the collar are where we connected the front collar to the back collar and we sewed it widthwise. Those are the seams that you will match up to the shoulder seams in the dress. Now pin it at the back, even to the zipper. But when we sew, we're not going to sew the back just yet. We'll start at the center and we'll stop about a 1/2 inch from the back zipper. So we'll start sewing at the center. Then sew all the way around from the center over the shoulder seam. Make sure the seams are matching up. And then stop when you get about a 1/2 inch away from the zipper. So you're going to sew this down to this. So you want to keep it even. I changed my mind. Now, as you sew to the zipper, stop before you get to the zipper, because if you sew over the zipper will not work. So stop right at that very, very edge before you get to your zipper teeth. Since this fabric is really thick, there's a lot of extra fabric at the seam, so I'm just cutting it to thin it out a little bit so that it's not bulky here where my zipper is. And now I'm just trying to fold the fabric down over the zipper so that I can sew it lengthwise. So I'm going to do a top stitch here. And once I get it under control, it might have been easier to pin it, But once I get it under control, then I'm just going to sew and do a top stitch down so that it can stay in place. Get rid of some of this thickness. Now I am going to trim the excess zipper off at the top. And you see how clean that is? Right, now we're going to do the other side. Out. It's so thick. So I'm going to cut some of this out. It's way too thick. Now with the next side, you're going to sew from zipper to center front. So start about a 1/2 inch from the zipper, but you want to line it up so that you're sure where the zipper and the collar will connect. But start about a 1/2 inch away and sew from there, 1/2 inch away from the zipper to the center front. But make sure you line up where it ends at the zipper, okay? Because you're going to go back and finish that once we're done sewing up to the center front. Now this excess fabric that's on top from the jabot, we're just going to cut that off. Take this off. This off. And this is the point where you finish the other side of the back zipper. Again, I'm just trimming off some of the seam because it's very thick. And I'm going to do a top stitch here so that it's aligned with my zipper. And I'm doing that lengthwise. And then I'm going to cut any excess zipper off from the top. And I'll be careful not to sew on the teeth or over the teeth. And then I'm done. And here is the completed back zipper. And also before you sew the other side, make sure it lines up with the side that's already sewn. Your collar lines up on both sides. But if it doesn't, it's okay. Who's gonna notice? The jabot on, like this. It's beautiful. For the hem of my sleeve, I'm just gonna fold that over and hem that like this. And here she is all done. I'm so excited to wear her. And I created a polka dot accessory for mine. And I will have a tutorial on how you can do the same too. But isn't she gorgeous?